really like that call to worship that Brent just had with David. David is one of my favorite Bible characters, as you might expect, because he was just a cool guy. I mean, he was a warrior, he was a king, he was a human like us, and he loved to sing, and he wrote songs, and as that text that he wrote, that he read said. And here's another text from the Psalms. Sing joyfully to the Lord, you righteous. It is fitting for the upright to praise him. I guess we're all still upright. Praise the Lord with the harp. Make music with him on 10-stringed lyre. Sing to him a new song and play skillfully and shout for joy. So David, he played all kinds of cool instruments. I wonder if he had a dulcimer at some point. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing up here, really. I don't drink or smoke, or I never have. Never had any drugs. I've never been way down on the bottom. I've known about Jesus all my life. I'm a third-generation Adventist. But growing up, I'm not so sure that I knew Jesus. I just knew about him. And so, see if I can get organized here. I was just going to tell you a little bit about my history and where we were a little late starting, so trying to get my whole life into 25 minutes might be a little, but we'll see how fast we can go. So my dad, his grandfather came from Nova Scotia over to North America, and they settled in Vermont. And that's where he grew up. And his dad passed away when he was a young child. So he really didn't have a male figure when he was growing up. He was raised by his mom and 3 sisters. So that may enter into a little bit of what our relationship might have been a little later on, but we'll talk about that. So he went to South Lancaster Academy in Massachusetts. And we'll come back to that location in a little while. And then on from there, he went to Loma Linda to take medicine. And so he ultimately became a doctor. My mom grew up in a little town called Champlin, Minnesota. It was across the Mississippi River from Anoka. And they were fairly poor. They had a small house it was a fairly rambling house, but it wasn't that big. Then her dad was some kind of an evangelist. I think he was an Adventist evangelist, but he had his own brand of evangelism. I think it involved a lot of ladies because he was off on the road all the time, and he eventually left the family. So she was basically raised by her grandmother and her mother in the little house there, and her mom did a lot of different things like cleaning house. And when they were building the bridge across the Mississippi, they housed some of the workers, and it must have been an interesting time. But eventually, my mom graduated from Anoka High School and went off to La Sierra to take nursing, and that's where she met my dad. And he, as soon as he was graduated from medical school, I think they got married somewhere in around 1943, but I'm not sure. I think she probably had graduated from nursing, and I don't know exactly when he graduated from medical school, but he ended up in the service as a lieutenant and a doctor, and he was stationed in Japan as the war was winding down. Japan had surrendered, and they were still occupying bases in Japan, and he went over there to be a doctor. So when he got discharged, they moved to a little town in Minnesota. He went back to Minnesota because that's where my mom was hanging out while he was in the Army, and they moved to a little town called New London, and he set up a medical practice, and that is where I was born. And I don't know if this is working. There we go. So that's little Donnie. I think it's probably early 1949. I don't know. How old am I there? I was born in December of 48. So for the first 5 years of my life, we lived in that little New London town, And see if that thing's working. That's my faithful friend, Pete. So after New London, we moved to a place called Spicer in Green Lake, and I went to grade school there. And I started grade school at a young age, really. And my parents I think they thought I was a clever kid. They actually started me at 5 years old in first grade. So I turned 6 in December. So I turned 6 during the year, but. I think that might have been a detriment to me in some ways, but there were several things that interfered with my love of school and my learning. By the time I was in the second grade, they discovered that I was pretty blind, and that's why I wasn't doing well in school. And they got me glasses, imagine that. And then all of a sudden I could see, and all the kids made fun of me, called me the Edsel because the Edsel had just come out. So the other thing that never was discovered for me was the fact that I had dyslexia. I didn't have it really bad. I can read now. I read pretty slow, but my littlest brother had dyslexia so bad that he never could read. I mean, he just barely can read, and he never graduated from school, and he's had a lot of trouble. So it was in our family, but nobody knew what it was back then. So you were kind of thought you were stupid or slow or lazy or whatever. So I struggled with reading all through school. I hated school really pretty much. I didn't like reading at all, so I never really read anything. I always looked at all the pictures because I'm very visual. So all of my survival in school was basically listening in class. So anyway, from Minnesota, my dad decided to be an anesthesiologist, which was a brand new field back then. They didn't really, wasn't organized at that point. They were just slapping ether on people's faces and hoping for the best. And before that, I think they were just chewing on a piece of leather. But he went and got a residency in anesthesia, and so now it's a wild open field. And we were in Denver, Colorado for a year, and then we moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, of all places, because Las Vegas had 2 hospitals and they did not have anesthesia departments. So he went to set anesthesia departments up in Las Vegas. Las Vegas, population 60,000, half the size of Bend. Not now. So we were there 2 years. I think my parents didn't really like raising their kids in Las Vegas. The school that we had, it was a church school, started out with some guy that had just graduated, and he didn't know how to do anything. And we had mostly recess, and the parents finally discovered that, and so they sent one of the parents over to babysit us for the rest of the year. And then the next year, they brought in this couple that were really old. I bet they were 50, but. Anyway, they were kind of slow, and I don't know. And they just my school year there for 2 years was kind of weird. My dad, classmate, called him to Hermiston, Oregon, because Hermiston, Oregon didn't have a anesthesia department, and they needed anesthesia. So we moved to Hermiston, Oregon, from Denver, and I'm sorry, from Las Vegas. Yeah. Good thing I got somebody to correct me up here in the front. And she wasn't even there. So I did 7th and 8th grade there in Hermiston. And then it's time to go to Academy. And of course, now I'm still behind everybody. I went off to Laurelwood Academy when I was 14. And turned 15 during the year, but I just didn't know how to study. I didn't like to read. I wasn't really well organized or doing homework, so I barely scraped through school in my first year in high school. I had a roommate that was pretty pretty bad, and he smoked, and I found out had a still under the sink. He was fermenting orange juice from the cafeteria. It must have tasted horrible. He tried to get me to drink it. I wouldn't. He was sniffing glue. He was just, I mean, this was my great example guy, you know. And he physically abused me a lot. And so I wasn't having a lot of fun altogether there, but I remember he kept picking on me, and I finally was studying one day, and he was just grabbing my cheek, Donnie, why are you studying? Why are you studying? Why are you studying? And I was so mad. I don't know if you remember the scene in Back to the Future where guy gets his fist up like this, and my fist was just getting like this, and I just swung around and gave him a hook right here, and he flew across I thought it killed him. He laid there for about a minute. He never picked on me again. So from Laurelwood, I joined my best friend from Hermiston, who was a year behind me, and we decided to go to Upper Columbia Academy. So I went to Upper Columbia Academy. And I was into a lot of mischief up there as well. You know, I just didn't have a real liking of authority figures, and I was always doing some dumb thing. And so, you know, once again, I was doing very poorly in school and having lots of fun goofing off with everybody, and I got into all kinds of crazy stuff. I remember one time the buildings were brand new. They were still doing the landscaping, and after dark they were out there with a bulldozer just plowing around, and we were on the third floor, and I thought, well, it'd be fun to throw some water on that guy. So I got a cup of water, and he came by in a bulldozer, and I threw the water on him, and then I must have missed him, so I threw it again, and I must have missed him. I threw about 6 or 8 of them. I never thought I hit him, and then about 10 minutes later, I'm getting this knock on the door, and here's the dean and this guy, and he's soaking wet. I must have hit him every time. So one of the things they had us do, you know, to get all our energy out, I think, is they would haul us down the road about 2 miles and make us walk back. So the faculty guy his car just disappeared, and a Greyhound bus came along, and so we're walking. The guy stops and says, "You guys need a ride?" So we got in the bus and rode all the way back. So that was the kind of mischief I was always in, but my year ended pretty badly there. I did some crazy things. I don't even know what. It wasn't much. You didn't have to do much to get kicked out of academy back in those days. But I was failing school, and I think that's the biggest reason that they decided that I needed to go home. And so I went home. Well, this is where we start getting into the thing with my dad. He'd been sort of ragging on me before this, calling me lazy and not getting good grades. And every time he looked at a report card, "You're never going to amount to anything." And if you remember Brent's talk, the little tape recorder starts playing in your head, and this went on and on. And boy, when I got kicked out of academy, this was it. I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm just a stupid, you know. And Glenda can tell you that tape is sometimes still playing around in my head. It's really bad when you get that kind of reinforcement from the person that's supposed to love you. So what happened to me then was that everyone decided, and I don't know how much decision I had in that, I should start, you know, I didn't pass much of any of my sophomore classes at Upper Columbia, so I headed off to Gem State to get in another sophomore year. So now I'm kind of up with the age group I should be with. And I was a little more mature. But here's the deal on the Gem State thing to start with. Over the summer, I had gotten my driver's license, and I had a girlfriend in Hermiston, and we were kind of having a fun summer, doing a lot of traveling around in my dad's almost GTO. He had a 65 Le Mans, And so we kind of were hot and heavy, and we liked each other a lot. She's going off to Laurelwood, and my parents said, "You're going to Gem State." And I think our parents might have gotten together and decided that that's what we should do, is send them to 2 different academies. So I told my parents, "You send me to Gem State, I'm getting kicked out. I'm not staying there. I will get kicked out." So I get to Gem State, and the first 6 weeks, interestingly enough, Gem State, there were 5 other of us that had been kicked out of Upper Columbia, and we're all at Gem State, and we'd all been buddies over there. So now we got this little gang thing going. We were in English class, and the little tiny English teacher, she's about 4'8", and she passed around this attendance sheet, and we're supposed to sign up so that's our seat every time. So my buddy put down Boddimer Shagnasty, and another buddy put down Ethelbert Muckenfuss, and I put down Mortimer McSnurd. And so, like a good adult thinking person, she just would say, "Mortimer, what's the answer to that question?" She just called us by those names. She played right into it, you know. But the guy that was Boddimer and me started calling each other Bot and Mort, and we're calling around. And so from Nevermore, I've been Mort at Gem State. Even in the yearbook, they called me Mort. And then, so that was an interesting little nickname I picked up along the way. So that is a shot of, if it's going to get the... Yeah, so that's me at Gem State. That was my second year at Gem State. So I'm trying to get kicked out, and the principal finally, I'd been disciplined several times for a lot of crazy stuff, and he calls me into the office, and he said, "If I didn't know better, I'd think you were trying to get kicked out of this school." And I said, "Yes, I am." Like a moron, And he goes, "Well, I got news for you. I am not kicking you out of this school." And it was like, okay, now what? So I kind of settled down. And I got to where I liked Gem State pretty much. And then the next year, I had a pretty good year there. But I was always into a little trouble here and there. And toward the end of the year, my second year at Gem State, which was my junior year now, I ended up, let's see, what did we do first? The first thing was, about 3 weeks before school was out, the faculty had their annual faculty meeting in the gym. So all the faculty are in the gym, right? So my buddy and I headed over to the girls' dorm, and our girlfriends let us in the back stairwell, and we just spent about a half an hour in the stairwell. We weren't really doing much of anything, and we talking and goofing off. And so we walk out the door just as the music teacher's coming around in her car to get some stuff at the cafeteria for their party. She sees us. She tells us, "Look, it's the end of the year. You shouldn't be doing this." She gave us a big lecture. Said, "As long as you keep yourselves clean, I'm not saying anything to the faculty." Well, the next week, some guys from Laurelwood that had graduated the year before, Walla Walla, that had graduated the year before, brought all their cars down, and they gave us the keys to one car, and we took off on a Friday night in one of their cars, my roommates and myself and one other guy, and decided we were going to go see a drive-in movie in a Volkswagen. So we get there, we saw the marquee one day, and it was a surfing movie, so we're going to go see a surfing movie. So we get to the movie. Well, the surfing movie had already played by the time we got there, and now they're playing some stupid Dracula thing that we did not want to see. And about halfway through, it started pouring rain. So you got these 4 great big guys in this tiny little Volkswagen, and rain going, trying to watch a movie they don't want to watch. So we headed back to the dorm, and guess who's sleeping in my bed when I get back there? It's the dean. So that went to the faculty, and then the woman mentioned the other thing we did, and so my buddy and my roommate and I got expelled. And so the next summer, that summer, which was only 2 weeks away, we headed off to New England because his dad was out there and had a job for us, and pay was about twice what we could get here. So we went out for the summer to work, and then we applied back to Gem State, and they wouldn't take us back. So, what do we do now? So we're in South Lancaster, Massachusetts. They have a day school called South Lancaster Academy, and that's where my dad graduated from Academy 25 years before or something like that. So we started going there, and I don't know how I managed to pass that year because I skied 42 times that year. I restored a Porsche 356 with my buddy, did some parties and did some other things, and worked night shift four nights a week. I don't know how I passed my senior year, but I did. So, second semester was so during the first part of the school year. So Glenda and I lived on the same street, and we walked home. So Glenda had come; she had come from New York. Her dad was in the conference there in South Lancaster, so it was both our senior years. We were the new kids on the block. Most of the other kids have been going to school there forever. And we lived on the same street, so we walked home together a lot. And we're just good friends. We knew each other. We sat together in chapel. That was an assigned seat, but we actually ended up sitting next to each other, and we just got to be good friends. And then on the second semester, there was a Valentine's banquet, and I had a date to this banquet, and it snowed big time, and the school said, we're letting the school out we're going to go have a snow picnic. And so I said to my girlfriend that time wasn't really a girlfriend. I mean, we'd kind of liked each other, but I was taking her to the Valentine's banquet, and I said, well, let's go out there. And she said, no, I'm not going to the snow picnic. So I walked across the street to the snow picnic and was walking up the street, and I get hit in the side of the face with a snowball. And guess who did that? And that's what she got for throwing a snowball at me. So we had a great time that day, and suddenly discovered there was more than just friendship. And it was kind of interesting because the banquet was coming up, and I wasn't that interested in going with this other girl anymore. But so we started going with each other, and we've been together ever since. And I need to interject this at this point probably, and that is that my slow move to Jesus and knowing him better and knowing what he has, how he means to me as a friend and what he can do for me has a lot to do with Glenda. She's one of the few people, not one of the few people, but she's one of the many people, let's put it that way, that I know on this earth that knows Jesus and has shown him living through her. And so I'm so glad that we got together. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to have to figure out how to pull this together. 20 minutes, okay. After SLA, Glenda went to nursing school, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so I started going to nursing, or I started going to AUC, just taking classes because I didn't know so I started taking classes that she was in. I took microbiology and anatomy and physiology and the same Bible class and stuff because why not? I wasn't, I needed to take classes, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And I wanted to mention another thing about people influencing me as a teenager in one way or another, and how important it is to really not let people be the ones to be telling you or influencing you. Because my first job that summer that I came to South Lancaster, my first job was at the Atlantic Union Conference office as the janitor. I'm 17 years old. It's really my first job. I've bucked some bales, I've hoed some watermelon, I've mowed some lawns, and mopped some floors, but I knew nothing about being organized. I didn't know about cleaning products. I didn't know what, I had the whole Atlantic Union Conference building. And the guy who was my boss was the secretary treasurer of the Atlantic Union Conference. And rather than him giving me an orientation or bringing me down there and showing me this is what you do, because he probably didn't know how to do it himself, he just, here's your office, here's where your stuff is, keep the place clean. So I'm doing the best I can, but I'm sure I'm not doing it right. And every once in a while, he's like, what are you doing this for? How come you're doing that? You don't know, and here it comes again at me. You don't know anything. You don't know how to do this. What's wrong with you, And the culminating thing was we had a big logo in the lobby, and he wanted that waxed and stripped every week. So Sunday afternoon, I would strip that and wax it and then go home because nobody's there. Well, I did that one week, and somebody decides they want to go to their office. And they come walking in the front door right as I was probably going out the back door, walked right across my wet wax, got footprints all over. And he calls me in on Monday morning and just yells at me, you don't leave this, don't you know better than to leave this mess? And he wouldn't even listen to what the situation was. And this guy, I had a friend in the registrar's office at AUC, and when I applied to AUC, I put him down as a reference, which was a big mistake. He crossed the thing like this and wrote, this young man is absolutely unfit for Atlantic Union College. So, I had a lot of struggle as a teenager with wondering what religion was all about and what we were really doing. And I was, I had a lot of bruises from getting slapped up the side of the head with Ellen White books and being told, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. And then I go into the Atlantic Union Conference office and see all of these big wig preacher types fighting amongst each other and doing all kinds of stupid stuff because they're human too. And it was really hard for me to reconcile the fact that, God loves every one of us, and it's not them that I have to watch. And but eventually, as I matured, I think I figured it out. So let's see, the summer that I was between right after AUC, my dad told me about. We took a trip to Pittsburgh, he and I, because he was going to a conference where they were setting up the protocol for CPR. That was 1969. So CPR was basically non-existent before that. 66? 67, anyway, somewhere in there. Couldn't have been 66. I think it was 68, but anyway. Yes. And he handed me a book called Inhalation Therapy. He said, this is a brand new field. You might be interested in it. So I looked at the book. It was kind of complicated, but sounded interesting. And so I applied to respiratory therapy school at Kettering College of Medical Arts. Lo and behold, they accepted me. So off I went to Kettering after that first year. And Glenda still had another year. You were just starting nursing, weren't you? Yeah, that's right. You had another year. She had another year in nursing. So I was down there for a year, and we were still, I think we were engaged at that point. It was kind of hard for me. I was in a school with about 300 girls and 4 guys. And my girlfriend's way up there. I did fly her down a couple times. We used to fly standby for $20. From Boston to Dayton. So anyway, so then we, let's see, let's just go through a couple of these photos real quick. You remember photo booths? We used to have fun. So that was our graduation from Academy. That's her house. Yeah. And then a year later, after I got my first year of respiratory, we got married, 1969. That was us heading out on our honeymoon. We spent 2 weeks driving up the Appalachian driving down the Appalachian mountains all the way to Kettering, Ohio, where I was going to school. Little did we know, 22 years later, we would walk that whole distance. We did the whole Appalachian Trail in 1991. So I started trying to think of let's see. So I went to, let's just say I finished respiratory therapy school, and I worked at Kettering Hospital for about a year, and then I got called to New England Memorial Hospital. All now, of course. So I got into a brand new field of which was respiratory therapy. I was the first second graduating class from the program at Kettering, and they were the only 3 schools, including Kettering, at that time that taught respiratory therapy. And I was nobody had a respiratory therapy department, so I went to New England Memorial Hospital in Massachusetts to start the respiratory therapy department. And we were there 5 years and decided that, or no, we were only there 3 years, right? 3, yeah. So, yeah.
3 years at Kettering. 2 more years.
Yeah, 2 more years at Kettering, and then 2 more years. So about 2 years into our New England Memorial thing, we decided, maybe it's time to start thinking about a family. And, we were at the time, we were in that era when population was exploding and everybody was talking about trying to do something about it. So we said, well, the first thing we'll do is we'll adopt a child, and then maybe we'll try to have one of our own. Well, we didn't have proof that we couldn't have one, so when we started getting interviewed for adoption, they kind of told us, you don't have proof you can't have one, and everybody wants an infant, so you're going to have to take hard to adopt children. And we said, well, okay. We kind of didn't want to do really serious physical problems because we had such an active lifestyle, and we didn't want to have kids that had lots of physical problems. So the next hard to adopt thing was siblings. Yeah, they want to keep siblings together. And so we said, okay, we'll take 2. They had stacks and stacks of books to go through, and we had to have an interview, and the woman that told us was starting to do our vetting. She, they got to make sure you're not a crazy person, and can you really do this? She actually told us that 40% of the people she interviewed for adoption got divorced after they got done listening to her interview or going through her interview. That's how her interviews were. We went separately, and she asked us a bazillion questions. And after 4 or 5 weeks, she called us in and said, she had told us it would take 3 or 4 months. She said, I can't ask you any more questions. You guys are it. So we got through with that, and we had gone through all these books and went, we'll take them. They were from Canada. We had to go get them in Newfoundland. We flew up to Newfoundland and got them. And they were 7 and 9 when we adopted them. And if this thing will work, that's my oldest, Bill, and that was probably a year after we adopted him. And then that's my younger son, Wade, in the back of me. There we were, I think that was a couple years later, 2 or 3 years later. So that was my young little boys. Saw Glenda back there with the baby a while ago. She never had that opportunity. But we do have grandchildren. So music for me, I started getting into music. I got my first guitar when I was 20 years old. My sister had been playing since she was 13. She's a singer-songwriter. She has a degree in music. She's made 2 albums over the years. So all 4 of us kids learned music. I guess we got it from our parents. We all four of my 3 siblings and myself, we all hear the music. I mean, my sister knows music because she has a degree in music, but the rest of us I know the treble clef a little bit because I had piano for 2 years when I was a little kid, didn't really like it. Wished I had now. I wish I knew how to play the piano. I probably could if I had one. Music has always been something that has really spoke to me, and so I wanted to do a couple songs that mean something to me, and we'll start with this one.
There's a lot of explaining in that.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, this could take a while. So that's a mountain dulcimer I'm playing. That's an Appalachian instrument. Oh, that's right. This is our farmhouse in East Tennessee. That's our Great Dane. Yeah, so we were restoring an old farmhouse, and we were into running at that point, and so I had been running around we had a 5-mile circle that I ran around almost every day, and a dog ran out and bit me really bad, and I still have a scar on my leg from it, and so I was soaking it. And I had to have something to do while I was soaking it, so I got the dulcimer out. That's a real hillbilly-looking picture. I mean, we were down in a holler in East Tennessee. What do you want? Amazing grace will always be my song of praise, for it was grace that bought my liberty. I do not know just why he came to love me so. He looked beyond my fault and saw my need. I will forever lift mine eyes to Calvary, for it was there that Jesus died for me. A marvelous disgrace that caught my falling soul, because he looked beyond my fault and saw my need. I will forever lift mine eyes to Calvary, for it was there that Jesus died for me. How marvelous disgrace that caught my falling soul, because he looked beyond my fault and saw my need. So singing and playing with the dulcimer is kind of like patting your belly and rubbing your head, but I don't sing with it a lot, but you got to know the words really well. So I just always liked the expression of music and how it makes a person feel. I know we were talking earlier this morning how you go to a memorial service, funeral, stuff like that. I was at my dad's funeral and I was doing really great until somebody got up and sang one of his favorite songs that he used to sing. I mean, my dad and mom sang in church a lot, and music was really important to them. And I think that's kind of where we all picked it up. I mean, I could tell a lot of stories about that, but another Bible character that I find fascinating, I really like the chapter of John 3 where Jesus meets with Nicodemus. I mean, Nicodemus was a kind of an interesting guy. I mean, he's kind of like us, he's got a job, he's got people that he's hanging out with that they're questioning what's Jesus doing, and he doesn't want to he doesn't really want anybody to know he's meeting with Jesus, because that might not be a good idea. So he meets him in the middle of the night, and he's really pretty much convicted, but it's kind of like some of the things we go through. You don't want anybody else to know in a way, because there was such a popular thing against him. So anyway, I just want to do this song that I've picked up about 40 years ago. I got it off of somebody's CD, some singer-songwriter guy, and it's just been a song I've always liked because it just really tells the story of Nicodemus. Take this cable off. Nicodemus was a rich man, a proud rich ruler was he, well known in the synagogue, a reputable Pharisee. Well, he came to Jesus on a moonlight night while everybody was in bed. Said, "Master, you've been sent from God." But this is what Jesus said: "You must be born of the water and Spirit. If you would see my Father's kingdom, you must be born of the water and Holy Spirit. If you would enter into life." Nicodemus was offended, but he didn't dare let it show. At the same time, he was convicted, but he couldn't let Jesus know. After all, he was a Pharisee, and he never made one mistake. And the thought of his unrighteousness was just too much to take. But Jesus said, "You must be born of the water and Spirit. Must be born of the water and Spirit. If you would see my Father's kingdom, you must be born of the Holy Spirit. If you would enter into life." Jesus paused and listened to the rustling of the trees. Said, "Nicodemus, the Spirit of God is something like the breeze. Well, you don't know where it's going to, and you can't tell where it starts. It blows across the souls of men and changes people's hearts. Just like the serpent in the wilderness, the Son of Man is lifted up, that whosoever shall believe in him shall have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whosoever shall believe in him shall not die, never die, no, never die." Nicodemus went home that night, quite a different man, pierced through by the words he heard, trying to understand. He knew Christ was the Son of God, he needed no further sign. And the words that Jesus spoke that night will echo till the end of time. "You must believe in me if you would see my Father Father's kingdom. You must put your trust in me, for I alone can save your soul. So, I don't know what else I can add other than the fact that it's kind of been a slow process for me to learn to know Jesus instead of learn to know about him. For a lot of my years, of my younger years, I didn't think a lot of the people that I was exposed to really knew what it was like to have a relationship with Jesus. And we, of course, over the years have done a lot of praying. We prayed a lot about our boys when we adopted them. We felt called to move out of Boston and raise our kids. We adopted them there, but we felt called to get somewhere else. And so a little hospital in Greenville, Tennessee, needed a respiratory therapy department, and they called me down there. So 75-bed hospital in rural Tennessee was kind of fun and interesting, and that was where this picture was from. That was our. So we got into a lot of things when we were raising the kids. We got into running and. We just liked a lot of activities, outdoor activities, and the boys went off to academy, and both of them, my oldest son did not graduate from academy, but my youngest son did. They both were married by the time they were 19, I guess, 20. I guess Bill was, yeah, and they both had kids at about that time. So they were out of the house, and I had a midlife crisis and decided that I wanted to go back to school and decided to go to art school. So we went back to, my mom had been diagnosed with cancer and gave her 6 months to live, and she was in Massachusetts, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to apply to Massachusetts College of Art and see if I can get up there and be closer to her. They accept 30% of their applicants. And I was laughing, yeah, right. They accepted me. So I went back up there and went to school, and my mom got treatments. She had chemo, and she was like, well, she was about 70, was she 70 then, 69? 60-something. She lived to be 92. And so anyway, we were up there going to art school, and Glenda said, I'll put you through art school if I can do what I want to do when we get done. I said, what do you want to do? She said, I want to hike the Appalachian Trail. So we hiked the Appalachian Trail. Took a year and a half off after art school, and it took us 6 months to do the trail. We did some other things in there. So that was us. And this is on top of Mount Katahdin when we finished. 2,200 miles, 6 months. I could spend another hour talking about that. So I'll just share a couple pictures and then we'll call it. This is one of my favorite pictures of my boys. So Bill's on the right and Wade's on the left. Bill, the oldest. So our son Bill had a lot of health problems in this, and he ended up passing away about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago. We were actually on the road at the time. We were up in northern Michigan, and we ended up going back down and taking care of all of that. And it was a sad time. It's kids. You're not supposed to lose your kids, you know. Another one of the things that knowing Jesus got us through. So this is the whole gang pretty much. Bill up on the left-hand side and Wade on the right-hand side, and then that's their combined kids and grandkids. Yeah, so much for population explosion. And one other thing that I was told I should mention, because everybody knows I'm a passionate bird watcher. But I could be showing you bird pictures for the next 3 hours. But this is a rose-breasted grosbeak, and this is what I call my spark bird. I was about 8 years old in Minnesota, and one of those landed right here in front of my face in a bush. And I was looking at it going, whoa, what is that? And I went inside and looked it up. And I think that's where my birding bugs started. So, yeah. So I want to leave you with one more song. And this is, for me, a lot of songs are as much prayers for me as anything. And so this is a song that a friend of mine wrote probably 45 years ago. He had a whole album of Christian songs that he wrote. And I've always really liked this song. See if I can remember it now. Once alone, I was on my own. I fought the sea of destiny. I did it my way. Didn't think I needed any help. I could do it myself. But then I saw the hidden flaw, my helplessness on my knees, confessing what I need, Lord. It's you I'm counting on. Jesus is the answer to emptiness. Give him half a chance, he'll do the rest. I can't do it any longer, I'm not getting any stronger. Oh Lord, it's you I'm counting on. Yes, Jesus, it's you I'm counting on. That's my prayer.